Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use Flexbox for building some basic layouts in web applications. We are going to have a sidebar at the left side, main header at the top, and some box elements as main content of the web layout. As you can see, we just have placeholders instead of real website content. So you can use this layout as a template for some web apps that you're going to create. We're also going to implement some simple responsive design, so this layout will be available for mobile devices. First, I will create a folder for this project, and I will call it Flexbox Layout, and I will open Visual Studio Code and open this folder. I will create index.html document and styles.css for CSS of this layout. Inside index.html, I will start by adding some basic structure with HTML head and body. So inside head, I will add title, Flexbox layout, and inside body, I will add hello world. Let's open this page with the browser, and we can use live server extension in order to have a local web server. Just click install if you don't have it installed already. We should have go live button at the bottom right corner, but for some reason it's not visible. So I will just close and open Visual Studio Code again in order to load it. And here it is. So we have go live, which is provided by a live server. So now we have a local web server for this web page. We are ready for development. So let's load styles.css. We are also going to load reset CSS in order to override some default styles set by the browser. Just copy this content and create a new file, reset.css. So now just load reset CSS before the styles CSS file. Let's start with building our layout. I will add an aside element for sidebar and div element for header and main content. So this div will have class of main wrapper, and aside will have class name of main sidebar. In the browser, nothing is visible yet, but with inspect element, you can actually check that main wrapper and main sidebar are loaded. Let's add some styles to the main sidebar element, and I will set width to 300 pixels and height to 100 VH, which is height of the viewport. And for background color, just choose whatever color you like. I will open a color picker, and this color looks pretty nice, so I will choose it. We can check how it looks in the browser, and here it is. We just have a huge rectangle, so let's add some elements to our sidebar. I will add navigation element with list items, and it can be a placeholder for link element. Nothing is visible yet because we don't have any content. I will just add some styles to point out these list items. First thing will be background color, which will be white. And I will set height to 50 pixels. I don't really like how these list items look with white color, so I will change it to some light blue color. And I will also add margin bottom in order to make a space between list items. Now it looks much better. I will continue with adding some placeholder elements to the main sidebar, and I will add sidebar header. I will also add a sidebar footer, which can be a placeholder for some important links like privacy policy, cookie policy, and stuff like that. And I will also add a placeholder element for user's profile. So here we can add a profile image or account name, something like that. And inside side by header, we can have two placeholder elements. And first one can be used for app logo, and another one can be used for toggle navigation and sidebar. And since we don't have any content inside these elements, we cannot see them in the browser. So let's write some styles for sidebar boxes. And first I'm going to add a background color. I can use the same light blue color. And I will also add some width and height. For first element, for first child, I will set height to 30 pixels and width to 30 pixels. And I will also add width and height to the last child, which is actually the second element. I will set width to 80 pixels and height to 70 pixels. So I want to make a difference between these two elements. This is how it looks right now. So we have two elements, one below another. So I would like to push the first element to the left side and the second to the right side. So we are going to have an empty space between them. We can easily achieve that with a Flexbox. First, I'm going to select the sidebar header and set display to flex. And now we have these elements side by side. And if we want to have each element on different side, we should use justify content and space between. So with this property, we're going to have space between these two elements. And now I would like to center these elements vertically. So I would just add align items and set it to center. Even though the first element is smaller, it is perfectly centered relative to the parent element. I would also make some space between navigation and sidebar header. So I will set margin top to 20 pixels. Now I would like to add some styles to the sidebar footer. So let's create a sidebar footer selector. I will add background color and set it to this light blue color. And also height to 50 pixels. So currently it looks exactly like a list item element. But the goal of this sidebar footer is to create a placeholder that will be at the bottom of this sidebar. Before that, I will just add some styles for profile box. So this profile box should be a placeholder for account image or account name. I will just set some background color and width and height. So now we have all of the content from the sidebar ready for using Flexbox. And first I'm going to add display flex to the main sidebar. So now it looks awful. I will just change the flex direction to column. So it should work fine. Sidebar elements are now one below another. And I will set justify content to flex start, which is already a default value. And what happens if we change it to flex end? The content is just aligned to the bottom of the main sidebar. In order to push sidebar footer to the bottom, we will set flex grow to 1 for navigation, and that way the navigation will take the full available space of the sidebar. If you want to center profile box horizontally, you can set align self to center, and that will change the alignment of this single element. It won't be applied to other flex items. We can also add some space between the profile box and the sidebar header. And we are also going to add position fixed to the main sidebar because we want to have the sidebar in the viewport even if we have a lot of content inside main wrapper. So let's add some elements to the main wrapper, and the first one will be main header and the second will be main content. So there are no visual changes, and I will continue with styling main wrapper. So first I will write a comment to know that from this line on we are going to style main wrapper and related elements. And I'm going to set margin left to 300 pixels because we have main sidebar width of 300 pixels. And I'm going to add some styles to the main header element. But first, let me just create some placeholder elements inside the main header. I'm going to create two div elements with a class name header placeholder. And now I'm just going to add some width and height. And background color for these header placeholders. Let me check how it looks. So we have one div element below another, and that is fine. So we're going to do the same as for sidebar header. We are going to have each header placeholder on different side. I'm just going to add display flex to the main header, and I will also add justify content and I will set it to space between. Placeholders are pushed to the left and the right side. And I will also use align items and set it to center. So if we set height to the value that is bigger than the height of the placeholder, the items will be centered vertically. We can add some background color and it will be easier to see. The items are centered, and we can also add some padding to the main header in order to make some space between the placeholder item and the main header's border. And of course, if you decrease the height of one placeholder item, both of them will be still centered. And if we, for example, change justify content to space around, we're going to have equal space around each placeholder item. I think this main header will look a little bit better if we have some darker color. So let me check how it looks. I think it's better. Let's also bring back space between. So for example, this left placeholder can be used for breadcrumbs navigation, and the right one can be used as a logout button, for example. Now we're going to add some box elements to the main content. I will add more elements to have enough content for some interesting cases. The main content element will be a Flexbox layout, so I will set display to flex. Now I will add some styles to the box wrapper element, and I will set width to 500 pixels and height to 350 pixels. And I will also add a background color. So you can see that even if we set the width to 500 pixels, the actual width is 142 pixels. So the width of the main content is equally distributed to the flex items. Now I will add inner content elements to the box wrapper elements. It will allow us to make some space between the flex items just by adding padding or margin. I will change selector to the inner content element. And now we have fixed width of 500 pixels. So you can see that we have some overflow for the main content element. And I will add margin of 10 pixels in order to make some space between flex items. But you can also add padding to the box wrapper element and it will do the same. I will create a selector for box wrapper and I will move the width of 500 pixels there. And now we have the equal width for each flex item. And if we add flex wrap and set it to wrap, each flex item will have the width of 500 pixels. And if there is no space in one row, the next flex item will go into the next row. More appropriate way of setting the width of flex items is by using flex bases, and I will set it to 50%. So each flex item will take half of the width of flex wrapper element. I will also add some padding in order to increase space between the main content and other elements. Now we can play around with box wrapper elements and set different flex bases to some of them. For example, for the first child, I will set flex bases to 100%, so it will take the full width. And for other box wrapper elements, for example, starting from the fourth one, we can set flex bases to 33.3333%. Now we have flex items of different sizes, but there is an empty space, so I can actually increase the width of the last element to 66.6%. So the last row will be filled and without empty space. And it looks nice, but maybe I would like to change the color of the box placeholders. So I will use some lighter color. I will check with this one. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. I will also add a header and a footer to the inner content of the box wrapper element. And I will also add some styles for these elements. So the first one will be header. And I will write a selector for the header. And I will set height to 80 pixels. And I will do the same for the footer. So I will just create the footer selector, and I will just select both header and footer in this selector. I will add a background color, and now we have two elements, one below the other. In order to push the footer to the bottom of the inner content, I will set display to flex. And if we check the browser, we see nothing. And we should add a flex direction property. So I will set flex direction to column. And I will add justify content space between. So you can see that header and footer elements are now separated. And if you like, you can do the same for other box wrapper elements. But I would like to add some more content to the footer, and I will create footer box elements, and I will create 5 of them. So let's add some styles for these elements. I will create a footer box selector. And I will add height and background color. So I will open a color picker and select some light gray color. Let's see how this one looks. So the color looks fine, but these footer box elements are block level elements, so they are one below another. And we're going to change that. We are going to set footer to flex. So footer box elements are not visible. And in order to set width to the footer box elements, I will set flex to 1. So each footer box element will take equal space of the footer width. We can also add a border to the footer box, and I will set a color to this blue color, and let's check how it looks. Maybe we can change the background color of the footer box so it will look better. I think it looks better, but if you want, you can change to whatever color you like. Now, for practicing purpose, I will change the height of certain footer box elements. And for example, I will change the height of the second element to 120 pixels. So this is the issue that I wanted to show you how to fix. So we can fix it by adding align items, and I will set it to flex end. Each footer box will be aligned to the bottom. So we can check that by changing the height of other elements, and I will set height to 30 pixels. And the problem here is that we still see the background of the footer. So we can actually keep the background only for the header. And for the footer, we will have a transparent background. So this issue is fixed. So we can change the footer box to any height value and they will stay at the bottom of the footer. We can also change the height of the last child element, and all the elements will stay at the bottom line of the footer. One possible point of improvement is that this main header is not fixed. So when you scroll down, the header is not visible anymore, and we can change that by adding position fixed to the main header. And we should also change the width. So I will set the width to 100%. And the issue right now is that if you set width to 100% to the element with position fixed, it will take the full width of the body. So we should change it to 100% minus 300 pixels. And it looks better, but we should also encount the padding that we add to this main header element. I will change it to 340 pixels, and now it should be fine. But now we have some overlapping between the main content and the main header, so it should be fixed by increasing the padding top. So I will change the padding to 80 pixels at the top, and I will change it to 10 pixels on the other sides. And now it looks pretty nice. So when I scroll down, the header is at a fixed position. Now we should implement a responsive design and support mobile devices. So I will search for meta viewport tag. So when we include this meta tag, our viewport will be equal to device width. After this, we are ready for responsive implementation with media queries. And let's check in the browser how our page looks after this meta tag. We definitely need to add some styles for responsive design. I will create a media query for devices with max width of 992 pixels. So it will basically include most of the mobile phones and tablets. So first I would like to decrease the width of the main sidebar, and I will set it to 50 pixels. So now these placeholder items in the sidebar can be used as a placeholder for icons instead of full links. And if you check the main wrapper element, you will see that we should reduce the margin left value. I will select the main wrapper element and set margin left to 50 pixels. So the main wrapper element looks fine, but the main header is squashed. So if we check the width of the main header, we will see that it is 100% minus 340 pixels. So we should change that. And the new width should be 100% minus, let's say, 80 pixels. So the right side is not aligned, and I will put 90 pixels, and it's perfect now. And now I would like to set each box wrapper item one below another. And I will search for selectors that I want to use in the media query. And I will use this one, and I will set flex basis to 100%. And I should do the same for other selectors that have different flex bases. So I will just copy this last child selector. And I need also to override this flex basis of 50%. So I will just use a generic box wrapper selector. So now all box wrapper elements have flex basis of 100%. When you work on responsive design implementation, you often need to change the order of the flex item. So you can do that by uh, adding order property. So this item is in the last place because it has order 1 and default order is 0. So if we change the order number for elements starting from 4th, the box wrapper with the header and the footer will be at 3rd place. And the last thing that I want to do is to remove this smaller sidebar box and keep only the larger one. And I will just select the first child of the sidebar box selector and set display to none. So it isn't visible anymore. And you can check how this responsive design looks on different mobile devices. I hope you like this video, and if you find it useful, please share it and press subscribe button.